Hello, and welcome to this episode of Crystal Clear. Today we have a very entertaining guest and friend of mine, Joey Panek. Welcome, Joey.
Oh, thank you. It is such an honor to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And, Joey and I met a few years ago when I was a guest host on the Suncoast View. Pre-pandemic.
Yes.
So a lot of things have transpired since then. So let's start. Like, what does life look like for you today? And then we'll dabble in all the fun stuff.
Well, when we met, I was the executive producer of Suncoast View and a host. And then after the pandemic, like maybe 2021, 22, I think, I left the station. I left the business to do a career change. And then have since come back part-time. And I was just joking, like I highly recommend if you need to be re-inspired to quit your full-time job and then try to get them to let you come back part-time because it's so much better.
I've done that.
Yes, it's great. It made me realize how much I miss it. I feel like I'm better at it. But yeah, so I'm part-time still a TV media personality. And then I still do some marketing and video work for some select clients. And then I'm still I guess I'm an actor again, because I went back on stage this last season at Florida Studio Theater. So, like entertainer might be the umbrella statement, or I used to say man about town, but that's when I used to go out a lot more.
I know, right? That life doesn't serve me anymore.
It would be wrong. It would be completely dishonest to still try to use that hashtag.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's how I would describe you, the entertainer.
Right,
Even sitting with you and feeling your vibe and your energy, it has this fun, uplifting entertainment type feel. And I love it.
That makes me feel good, because that's what I hope to leave as my mark. So I'm glad to hear that.
Well, that's the mark you've left on me.
All right, I'll take it.
So what inspired you to do what you do? I've always really been intrigued by media personalities. Like, was it journalism that drew you in? Was it more of the entertainment? Was it the camera? Was it the people? As a kid, I remember I always wanted to be an actress, and I'm like, no, I would not want to be followed around by the paparazzi. It freaked me out. And I was like, I always have this big personality though. I have to do something with it. And then I'm like, maybe theater. And I'm like, no, I didn't want to do that. So, here we are. I've dabbled in a lot of things on my journey. So I'm always curious as to what inspires others to kind of take their path.
I think it definitely started for me and has continued to be like the quest for attention. I mean, certainly as a kid. As an adult, it's interesting to watch how that's changed a bit. But as a kid and a young adult, it was all the attention on me. I was craving the attention, the spotlight. And I was good from the time I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old, realized I was a good singer. I was a good performer. I was a good actor, so I got right into theater as a kid. So that was always like my pathway to attention. And then I fell in love with performing and being in the spotlight and doing theater. And then I worked as a professional actor for like 13 years at that point. And I would work at different theaters throughout the country. I moved to New York and kind of based my career from there. You would have these long blocks of free time during the day when you would go do a contract in a theater. And so I would always try and do other things just to keep myself busy. Some of the actors were like, no, I need to rest for tonight's show. And I was like, no, I'm bored.
Right.
So I got really involved in social media when like Facebook came out to the masses and it wasn't just college kids.
I remember that.
And before that, it was like MySpace. Like I was I loved social media. I got really involved in it. And I went back to school at one point for video editing. And so those two just kind of, as theater work started to become less available around the country, I leaned into more of the video and the social media. And then that kind of led me to television. And then now it's like a combination constantly of all three and all those things. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, MySpace. That takes me
back.
Like, can we not get a song on our profiles right now?
Do you remember how long it would take to load someone's MySpace page because you had all the plugins and the animations?
And yes, and like all the things. Oh, whatever happened to those?
Ironically, your MySpace pictures exist online. I found this out a few years ago. You can find them. You have to like log in, but I think they all moved over to like Google Photos or something.
Oh, shit.
It's so much fun. It is so much fun. I highly recommend going back and trying to get them.
I don't know if I want to. That could be a line.
Some of them you will keep
cross.
to yourself, but there are so many great. Yes, it is like a little treasure trove of your own personal history.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's out there.
Yes.
Once you upload it to the internet, it is all out there.
And do you remember Friendster? Do you remember Friendster?
No, I never had Friendster. I remember
Friendster,
it.
It was like just a little blip. But the great thing about it was like the first social media site that would tell you if you went to someone else's profile, it would tell you how you knew them. Even if you didn't know them, like they're friends with this person, this person, this person. So I thought that was really a cool feature that we'd never seen before.
Yeah, because I remember having the Facebook fsu.edu, and then all of a sudden my grandma's got Facebook and she's posting on my account all the time. I'm like, what is going on?
Yes,
and even our kids now, they're like, no, Facebook's for old people.
I know, right?
Like no one has Facebook. Everyone snaps.
I know, and once we're on that, then they're gonna leave because it'll be too old.
I know. I don't have Snapchat. I can't keep up with it all.
I do.
I don't. I just can't.
Yeah.
I probably should.
No, you're living a good, healthy life. You should not be
no
on
TikTok.
all these.
No. I have Instagram and I have Facebook, and I try to keep it business.
Yes, that's smart.
But then this past week, I have found myself like mindlessly scrolling. You know, like mindlessly scrolling, and I actually journaled about it. Like, I need to stop. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, I think it was boredom because I was sick for a couple weeks. And when I was homesick, I was just kind of like in this realm. And I really feel like I lost brain cells.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I feel like, I'm like, is this what happens all day?
I'm turning to mush.
Just like, yes.
But I think mindlessly scrolling, I've changed my attitude about it. As long as, like, some people watch trashy reality TV.
Right.
Some people, whatever your hobby is, if it's just to like refresh yourself or what do they call it? There's the two types of brain waves, and one is like
like the beta state and the alpha state. Yeah.
So to get you, I think it's the beta state is what we don't do enough of.
Right. The more of the chill.
Yeah.
The low
So
vibe.
if just scrolling brings you joy, as long as you're like, all right, I'm only gonna do this for half an hour.
Well, you know what it was? It was all the prom pictures in school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like my friends' kids are going to high school too. Like I have a kid going to high school. It's crazy. And I love that prom they're now long dresses, which is kind of nice, but they made bouquets instead of corsages.
Oh, that's
cool. And I'm like, this is a cool new trend.
Yeah.
And they made them themselves. And I'm like, see, you learn all these things.
Yes.
So I will say I was judging myself when I said mindlessly scrolling. I was totally judging myself because it's something that I don't normally do and take the time to do. But there were things I found joyful about it.
Yeah.
So thank you. I just unlocked my judgment of self.
No, I will volunteer though that the flip side of that is I've noticed I have a bad habit of when I should be doing other things, I'm like, well, let me just lay down for a minute and just look.
See, and that's what I was catching myself doing.
That is, I want to watch that behavior on myself, but I still want to allow it was a long day.
Just chill. What's going on in the outside world?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like for me too, like the comparison, like, look, everyone's out on the boat this weekend and we're at home and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, don't do that. Like if you catch yourself going down those rabbit holes, that's when it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
So
it's the medium.
It is. It's like finding the balance in everything, right? And so speaking of that, you said you came back part-time.
Yes.
You're doing some theater work. I mean, it sounds like you have a really fun balance. Like you're dabbling in I'm that type of person. I need to have my hands in a lot of different places. I need to be like fulfilling a lot of different areas. I'm not made to be in one place all the time. Yeah. I've never been made that way. No. I knew that's why I had to go to school for something that I had to be active and tangible and I could travel and I could do whatever there was some buoyancy to it.
Yeah.
So how does that feel for you in this light rather than like being in the all in?
I love it. I really do. I mean, of course I have my days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I just worked for one big entity full time, because when I'm busy with one like large project, they would understand I'm busy.
Right.
Like, oh, he's got his plate full. But when my work is balanced between like 4 different people or entities, it's like, ooh, they don't know what I'm doing for that one. But on my worst day, I still love it. It's great. And I have marketing clients. Some are here in Sarasota, and then I work for a family member who's up in Syracuse. And I love that because I'm learning constantly.
Right.
Because social media, once you're any type of marketing, once you're out of it with technology, it's hard to get back in. So it's nice to have a hand in that. Yeah, I feel like it's just each job makes me better at the other jobs.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel the same. And
Yeah.
I have, I would say about 4 different tiers that I'm doing with like the community outreach for bells, the podcast. I actually just stopped teaching and training just to take a break from it. I was like, that
Hmm.
was my life for over 20 years
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
love it. But like, I really am in the season where I want to focus on my own health and fitness. And I was starting to get to the point where I wasn't motivated to do my own thing
Hmm.
because I was in there doing stuff for other people. And that for me is when it's like, okay, it's time. And my
Hmm.
clients were really cool about it. They were very
Yeah.
sweet. But I did have some like abandonment stuff I
I'm
had to process
sure.
through with that because I like felt like I was leaving them and because someone invests in you and they want your energy, so I had to work through a little bit of that, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have the type of personality too that like you're not just showing up and like training them or like leading a class and like that's it and it's going. It's like I know this about you. You put so much of yourself into what you do. So there is that withdrawal when you take it away that people are like, what? Yeah,
Right.
they're gonna miss you. They're gonna miss, but I'm sure everyone understands, or if you need to like recharge you. You
Yeah.
don't just wake up and you're that,
No, exactly. So that's what I've been in, like a recharging phase, which has been nice. And then I feel like I'm being much more led into doing these retreats, like these fun empowerment retreats. And I did want to revitalize last week, revitalized chiropractors where my kids go to the chiropractor. And she invited me to do like a ladies mini retreat. And I had like 17 ladies that showed up. It was like a packed house for the space that we had. And
Yeah.
it was awesome. And it's like, it's really cool because I feel like when I do those, it just channels through me. Like when you're on air and we're
Hmm.
having open conversations, it's like, I don't like to look at scripts or prompters unless I have to. I like to
Yeah.
keep it open and flowing. And you can kind of feel what each person needs and what they're gravitating to. And it's like, I had some stuff written down, but I didn't even utilize it. Like we
No.
just went a whole different direction and it was really fun. So I feel like that is something that I really want to get more into is like customizing retreats and doing I would primarily do ladies, but I think it'd be fun to do co-ed retreats or like a guys.
Yes.
It's like different people. I mean, everyone needs some sort of like space for themselves. It's
Hmm.
really just like a space holder place for you. So I
I
think I'm going to
love
do
that.
some revamping this summer to my website and stuff like that. And my year anniversary for Crystal Clear is coming up, which is crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's no small feat.
It's not. And I've
No.
just kind of been doing it for fun and
Yeah.
not like, setting myself to a timeline. And it's been really awesome.
Oh,
But I
good.
feel like it's evolved. I
Mhm.
think at first it started off as this, this is how I healed my PTSD journey. And now it's just really evolving into like being a platform to talk to different personalities and expose different businesses in the community and just have insight from other people. So
Yeah.
thank you for being
My
here and
gosh.
for doing this.
It
And
is my
we're going to
pleasure.
get into the fluffy nitty gritty stuff
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because I do like to get personal and
Absolutely.
in the mix on everything because I feel like what fuels us is something from within. Like you said, you did the entertainment stuff and even from a young age for the intention. And, I did similar. Like I remember it was more of like, everyone was tipsy at my house and I would be the entertainer and come out and be the only kid. I was always the only kid around. So I would be like, or me and my cousins, and we would like put on videos and do all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
stuff. And, so yeah, the same thing. It's like, pay attention to me, like do something for me. Like
Yeah.
that's the way I learned to do that. And then I feel like I went through a phase probably during adolescence where it was like, I don't want any attention.
Mhm.
I don't want any
Mhm.
attention on me. I got super body conscious when my body started developing differently. And, then I developed an eating disorder. And so I was like, no attention on me.
Mhm.
And then I was in the mall shopping one day and Abercrombie was 2002
Oh, yeah,
in the
yeah.
Abercrombie's prime. You're really
A&F.
pretty. Do you want to work here? I was like, sure. And then the ego came back a little bit.
Yes.
And so I modeled to work for Abercrombie for a few years.
It wakes up that kid that wanted to get attention and then got
Right.
really shy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I realize now, and I've done a lot of studies, especially over the past few years, the difference between like ego and authenticity. But I feel like it's not just the ego, like, you think like the schmooze ball, like I want the attention on me. It's not that. It's
Mhm.
more of that intrinsic I enjoy people. It's the energy that comes with it. And that to me is how you can be authentically put yourself out there for the attention and for the entertainment purposes, because it fuels you up. It charges your batteries.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes it can deplete them pretty quick.
Sure.
But I wanted to clarify that, because I feel like it's a stigma out there when people say, oh, I like the attention. But it doesn't have to be like for a self-serving purpose. It's more of that intrinsic motivation. Like, I love to make people laugh. I was always the class clown. I was the goofball. I was the goofy one in my family. I have a pretty goofy family anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not for the purpose of like self-serving.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
If that makes sense.
And sometimes the attention is to be the example as well for somebody who is shy or...
Right.
One of my favorite things when I was first starting to kind of branch out on my own was when that response you get from people when they're like, oh my gosh, like I thought that too, or I'm the only. It's the reason why I loved stand-up comedians when I was a kid, because they, like Ellen DeGeneres, her early stuff,
I love her.
Paul Poundstone, they would say these things and I was like, oh my gosh, that's hysterical. I thought I was the only one that did that. So when I would get any response that was even remotely like that from people, I was like, oh, okay, I'm standing up and doing it, but like I'm letting them be seen as well. And I love that. So so, and I think being honest about doing it for attention, being honest about it is not a bad thing either.
No, I think that's perfect. And I love that you said it that way.
Yeah.
Because people need to be okay with that. And, having children from the ages of 17 to 4, I can see the ones that have already gone through adolescence and how they kind of got through into their shell, like especially the older boys. Love them. They probably don't listen to my podcast, but if you do, I'm using you as an example. I remember them dancing around to like James Brown with sunglasses on and being silly and goofy. Oh my God, if you showed that video now, they would probably slam the door in your face and never show up again. But it's giving them permission and giving other people permission to just be silly and be goofy. And it's healing. Like it was always really healing for me to laugh at myself. And it adds a different level of like humility to your life. If you're able to just laugh something off and not take it personally, it's very empowering.
It's a superpower. It really is. And when I'm still struggling with it, like it's something that, and it's one of the things that I probably want the most is to just unplug that wire when I get triggered, is like, just laugh, just enjoy it. My husband's really good at that. He's really inspiring about that. And he always will say like, don't suffer it. Don't suffer it. His whole thing is like, just don't suffer things. When bad things happen to you, don't suffer them. And I'm not good at it, but I'm aware of it. Like I'm on a path to making it.
And being aware of it is key. It's like, I am suffering right now. I even went through that kind of this morning. I woke up, I'm like, I'm feeling fluffy today. I don't feel good. I'm like, I need to run, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, be kind to yourself. Why are you not being kind to yourself right now? You are choosing these thoughts, which aren't really reality. You're creating this reality in your head. But I'm aware that I'm doing it. So I was able to kind of reel myself in and, just go along my day and create my healthy habits and do some things that fit me up. Went to the gym. I went to Hunsader's flower fields before they closed and picked like this beautiful wildflower, just something to kind of disconnect me and ground in, because I feel like I had a very overstimulating weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it always happens when I'm feeling overstimulated. That I have a tendency to like nitpick a little bit more.
Yeah. It's
and
like
get in my head.
That hangover the next day, that emotional hangover. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're probably depleted from a lot of all the good
things.
All the good hormones.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I messaged Matt this morning. I'm like, I think I just need a couple of days with no technology, nothing to do, no one to take care of, and nowhere to go. Probably not going to happen for a little while, but that's okay. I'm telling you, this is what I need. And we can make it happen at some point.
Good for you for asking for it too, and creating a family situation
where
he's
pretty good about it.
You both know you can ask for it.
Yeah. I mean, we have to tag team. I mean, yesterday we were, funny example, Brody's playing with a toy crane and it's like going, it's like this very realistic crane, and the TV's on, and I'm helping Matt book a flight and he's not sure about the seats. And so we're going to cancel the flight. And I'm like, I'm just going to go outside and swing on the swing and take a minute.
I'm going in timeout.
And we'll recalibrate when I come back. And I came back inside and the TV was off. and Brody was eating a snack and it was quiet and he knew I needed to kind of come back in to settled.
Oh,
And that was okay. Even though Brody was sitting and eating 2 cookies, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He was he
So
was
you
quiet.
two must have a shorthand that you can say that and he can hear that you're asking for it. Because I know in some marriages or relationships, just the act of saying, I need to step out of here for a second, those are fighting words, right?
So we worked hard to get there.
Good for you two.
I mean, we worked hard to get there because we know and we've really educated ourselves on mindfulness practices. And just being as clear and watching my tone when I say it too. It's not like I have to get out of here. It's I need a minute to get outside.
Yeah.
And just really looking at him. And sometimes we'll even tag time. I'm like, I'm at 5%. If I get below 50, that means I need some help. But if I'm at 5, I really need to go. And so we try to really communicate that. And it doesn't always, it's not always perfect.
Sure.
But we try our best. And same with him. He's doing 2 different podcasts now, still doing the CEO gig, So I'm glad that he's able to kind of escape and do something for himself too and finding that balance. So how do you and your husband feel like you find that balance with life and all the things? And I love what you said earlier is a really great example.
He's really good at it. Now, he's a psychotherapist, so he spends his day very, very intently listening and working with people one-on-one. Back to back. If he has 8 patients, he's working 8 solid hours. And it took me, I'm saying all this out loud because it took me quite a few years of being with him to realize this, that he does not have time to let me just quickly check my email or let me do he's FaceTime. He's 100% on when he's working. So when he gets home, he's really into our yard and our garden and our landscaping in our yard. He does it all. I do nothing. I bring him water. And that's all right. That's my job. So he'll do that to kind of unplug. So I bring him up because I'm really bad at finding balance. It's one of my areas for growth, opportunities for growing. But to get to live with someone who does it so well is helpful because I do get to see a model of the good behavior. Exercise. I should be in amazing shape because of how much. No, thank you. That's sweet of you to say. That wasn't a trap, I swear. But
I didn't think it was a trap. No, I see your post.
But I should, the amount that I love to exercise and how important it is to me. And it really is one of the things that I do that will kind of set my mind right.
Same.
Yeah. And it can be any type of exercise. It can be, I used to love group cardio classes, but even lifting weights and running, although I've really fallen off that bandwagon. But I hope to get back on. Those have been very important to me to kind of, that's how I maintain the balance of the exciting kinetic chaos of my personality and my work style to then have that is very, very relaxing.
Same.
Focus.
Exercise has saved my sanity for as long as I can remember. Even as a little kid, I would dance around. I would do something to physically, I needed that kinetic movement to get it and somatic movement to get it out. I really have a lot of energy as a person. So I feel like moving my body. And some days it's a long walk and a mindful walk early in the morning. We live near Waterside, so I'll walk down and walk around Waterside. Sometimes I get an iced coffee. Sometimes, get a crop smoothie and then walk back. And sometimes I can make it a 7-mile loop and it doesn't feel like it because it's so beautiful and it's so nice. Maybe not in the heat of the day right now. I try to go earlier or later. And then some days I just need to lift heavy things. I need to feel strong. I need to feel empowered. I actually had a situation last week where we had something going on with a family member and I felt like I was in my head about it a little bit. And I went to class. I popped in F45 downtown because I was downtown at my daughter's school. And I found that it was still in my mind when I was during my workout and I was doing deadlifts. And I'm like, you know what? This is not my shit to carry. It's not my shit to carry. And I literally picked up the weight, put it down for the deadlift and was like, I feel like my higher self ripped me out. It was like, shake it up, sister. It's not your shit to carry. And it was immediately able to switch my tone in my head and be like, you know what? That person just wasn't open to receive and wasn't able to receive what you were trying to give and how you were trying to show your love. And that's not your problem.
No.
That's not your problem. And so it was really one of those just testaments to how we can physically and mentally at the same time change our trajectory in our mind.
And isn't it funny that you were literally carrying your own weight at
Yes.
that point, and that is what was telling you, like, oh, this other thing, this is not something I have to lift and carry right now.
And
this is what I'm lifting and carrying right now because I'm choosing to.
right.
Yeah, that's
and it was
so
it
cool.
was powerful. And I've told several people this story because I'm like, it's really something that I've always taught people, right? I mean, this is what I've been coaching for over 20 years with exercise and fitness, and now more of the mental health stuff and balance. So if you need a balance coach, I know a good person for you. And it was just one of those like, whew, that was a moment for me. Yeah. And I actually had the retreat the next day. So I was able to utilize the entire, and I told the whole story, and every single person there was like, okay, I can relate to that, because it was something I was kind of festering because of past events. You know, I was letting it fester in my mind because it was like, oh, they're just keeping on with their habitual reactivity with something, but it doesn't mean that I have to stay stuck in there with them or even be drawn in with them. Right. It was like, that's their stuff. And we got a clean slate.
Yeah. And I love that it happened. I love it happened while you were doing a deadlift.
Yeah.
You know, like
I mean, and there's something to that. Actually, Liz Lowe at Scorch calls it the deadlift effect.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, I've had a lot of women get divorces since they started working out. I'm like, oh gosh, because they're tired of carrying. Yeah. You know, there's something too when you become empowered by lifting weight and putting it down and knowing you have the power and the choice. And I think there is something to knowing the power of choice. When it comes to that stuff.
I love Liz Lowe, and I love that she has a philosophy around her deadlifts.
She does. Amazing. She has a philosophy around everything. Yes. I love her. That's so cool. Yeah, that's just my little 2 cents on that.
So the way that I balance now is not very healthy. I'm noticing, and I'm going to be honest about this, I'm noticing as we're getting into the heat of the summer. Last summer was very rough for me. It was like the first time where I really like cocooned, hibernated, and honestly it was the heat. And I stopped doing very many things outside of the house. Like I'd go to work and stuff like that. But like I just was zapped. I didn't, all my activities like running and other things I stopped doing, and I started drinking a lot more. And I'm feeling the beginnings of that happening right now. Like right this very, like this last week or so going in. And so I'm like, okay, we're not going to have the same summer, like whatever it is that I have to do. So I've been thinking about it a lot today, in fact, because I'm like, I need to just make different choices. Whatever, you know, like if my choice is just to lay on the couch and scroll TikTok and then think, should I have a glass of wine? Like we know where that's going to go. So let's just try something different. And I don't know, whatever that is, I'm just going to keep trying something different.
You know what, actually, because Matt's been alcohol free for a couple years now. And I don't like to set hard limits on myself ever. So I'm not currently drinking alcohol, not to say that I would never have another drink again. But what we do is there's a lot, and they're very trendy, a lot of the non-alcoholic like seltzers and different drinks and stuff out there. So we'll just pour one in a glass, or like a wine glass, and feel, because, you know, we have a 4-year-old. It's not fun to sit around and drink with a 4-year-old. Right. Like that's not relaxing. It's not the way I want to spend my time. They are not
on the same vibe with
to
you.
all of my friends out there that can do it, I just am not made that way. When I was 25 and I had Tatum, totally different story. I could hang all day. I could do boat days. I could do beach days. I am not that mom.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that we, you know, it's just like the placebo effect. Just put something bubbly in a cup or something. Right. There's like non-alcoholic wines, or make yourself a fun little mocktail. But then you feel good about it too, because you're like, oh, it's not empty calories.
Right. It's the ritual. And then I quit smoking years ago. I don't know. I was in my early 20s. And so if you do the math, it's been a long time. Right. But when I quit smoking, I still would like do smoke breaks with the friends I would smoke with. But I'm like, let's go chew gum. So we'd like go outside and have a stick of gum. And she was like, what is this? I was like, this is us still going outside and taking a break from our normal activity. But instead of smoking, we're doing something else. And,
right.
And it's that worked.
And you like baby yourself into it. And if there's a night you want to have a glass of wine, have a glass of wine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you know that it's something that's not going to make you feel good in the long run, like create your intention. So I challenge and encourage you to create your summer intention. What is your intention going to be this summer? Is it going to be to get into good shape? Is it going to be to hide from the heat and get in good shape? Is it going to be to regulate your balance? And just kind of go along with that. And when you feel like, and this is how it kind of happened for me, because it all really started for me with the no alcohol is balancing my hormones. When Matt and I did the brain scan and healing the PTSD, when I realized the areas of my brain that were lit up, I'm like, okay, well, my amygdala is really lit up. And I know alcohol is not going to help that go down.
Ew.
So I cold turkey kind of stopped alcohol and caffeine at the same time.
Wow.
Mind you.
Wow.
It was a lot.
It was not a good week, I imagine.
It was a lot. But I feel like now that I look back, and maybe it's a little foggy, I look back and I don't feel like it was that bad because I realized it was the habitual. I loved the morning coffee time. And it was the having something warm before no one was awake. Oh, yeah. So I did lemon water. Sure. So, or going out with my girlfriends and the social aspect of drinking. Like I wanted something in my hand when I was out in social settings. So I scaled back on going out a lot. We save a lot of money. But, I'll still go to the Ritz and get a virgin siren. And they taste better.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Oh, my God, I love those sirens.
Oh, my God. They are the best. Yes. Actually, it was funny when things popped up on Instagram. You'll appreciate this. And it was like, what'd you look like in 2018? And I looked through 18 and I'm like, so many sirens. It was like why women choose and this and this and this. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, so here's Crystal in 2018. Everything has changed. Now I am here with my crystals, my sage.
Yes. I love it. It's a different, your siren looks different these days.
These things are dangerous. I think they really do have a limit on how many you can have now.
like the Baha'i hut where you can only have a couple.
I think I went over the limit.
Yes.
A couple times.
I will set one thing that has worked for me. There are a couple things I will do that I will not drink before, like no matter what time of day. Like if I have exercise scheduled at some point, obviously I'm not going to drink before that. No. And then if I have any type of performance, I won't. So I've been purposely trying to plan things later in the day. Like even this morning, I moved my workout from what would have been 8:30 this morning. I was like, I'm gonna move it to 4:30. And then if I get an urge at 3 to have a glass of wine, I can't because I don't drink before I work out.
There you go.
And Jerry and I started doing ballroom dancing together.
Oh, fun!
On Tuesday nights, because we were looking for overall, several years, we've been talking about trying to find a mutual hobby, because we have a lot of separate hobbies and we support each other doing them. We don't need to be connected at everything.
Right.
But we did realize we don't have a lot of shared hobbies that don't involve eating and drinking. So we started doing these ballroom classes on Tuesday nights. It's a blast. He's really good. I think I'm pretty good. So we're both good at it. So there's the joy of doing something that we're both good at and then learning how to do it together. So it's been really cool.
So that's fun. Yeah. And that's important. And that's something Matt and I have had to learn to do is really reinvent what life looks like, because it was all kind of eating and drinking. And it's like, well, I don't really want to go out to eat if I'm not going to have a drink. Because we used to base we're kind of foodies too. So where we were going to go based on what cocktail we wanted or what we wanted to eat or wine. Matt was a big wine connoisseur and great places that had great wine. And I'm like, but now it's I still want to go to those places.
Now I
still want to go. Right. I don't want to take it away. And we actually go, have you ever been to the Om Shop?
No.
Oh, it's really awesome. It's a cool place. It's across from the landings. So we'll go for a sound bath date and a shamanic clearing. And it's really beautiful experience and go to lunch. So we have, I feel more daytime dates. Yeah. Because essentially on the weekends is more of our time. On the weeknights, we're done.
Oh, yeah.
We're done. Or we put the little guy to bed and we'll watch a movie or something at home.
Sure.
And
that's why
I feel the weekdays go by so fast for us, but it's just reinventing and finding something creative. So I love that you guys have found that creativity, and it's therapeutic too, dance and intimate and romantic. Fun.
I've fallen so in love with him from doing these classes, and I've been in love with him. It's not like I had to refall. But I watch him, he's such a good leader. And I'm like, oh, all right. Right? He'll go, he'll go to lead me into a move. I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Oh, we're going to
All
try
right,
it.
Mr. Man.
I know. Dirty Dancing was my favorite
Oh my
movie when I was like 5
gosh.
years old, even though I look back and I'm like, that was really inappropriate for a 5-year-old to be
know.
watching.
I
Like,
know.
That was a lot of inappropriate content.
So much of it went over our heads, though.
It totally did. But it's like
No, that
favorite
movie like
of all
tackled a
time.
lot of big issues. Then you go back and watch it now.
Oh yeah. Like one of funny story, one of Matt and I's first like trips together, we went to I think Miami for a swim show and we practiced the lift in the water for for 4 hours.
Did you do it? Were you successful?
We were successful.
Yes.
I mean, I fell in a lot, but I think his shoulders were sore for 2 weeks because I'm not tiny.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, I love that movie.
It is. It's a great one.
Yeah.
So what intrinsically motivates you to do all the things you're doing? Like, what do you feel like really gives you the incentive to keep going, like on an intrinsic level?
There's a couple things. One thing that I've only recently in the last few years have started to understand is I'm starting to trust how I know things are going to make me feel. So in the moment I might be like, oh God, I really don't want to do this. Or oh, do I want to sign up for this thing? Or do I want to, whatever, agree to sing at this thing or do a show or whatever. But then I'm always like, I am going to love this. I know when I get there, I'm going to love it. And I know, and I'm going to say, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't want to do this. So I'm starting to like just mute a lot of that pre-chatter and trust. I know how the end result is going to be. And running was one of those things too, where I was like, if I was trying to talk myself out of it, I would just put my shoes on and start changing. Like, I'll just walk around the block. And if I feel like running after that walk, I'll do it. And I always came home from the run like, oh my God, that was incredible.
Right. Like you never regret exercise.
Yeah. So that kind of what drives me is like how I know it's going to make me feel when it's over, like that end result. I'm very aware right now of how lucky I am in the life that I've made for myself, like how much access I get to things or the privilege that I have. I realize how lucky I am to have that and that I don't want to waste that. And it would be kind of dishonoring it to not live it to its fullest,
I love that.
That's a kind of a big thing for me. And like gay youth is a really big topic of something that's a cause that's important to me is just making sure that like all youth, but for me it's more personal that it be like queer youth, just making sure that they have a place, one corner of their lives where they feel good,
and accepted. Yes. And like they have a safe place and like they can feel seen and heard and understood. I'm doing my level 2 of this trauma and resiliency training for a resilient retreat. Like I did level 1, started level 2. I'll be honest, like I started level 2 and I was like, I have to take a break. Like I was going through the domestic violence chapter and it's like, I've been in some really crazy relationships and didn't realize it because it's kind of a societal norm, like some of these things, but it's still inappropriate. It's still considered like abuse and violence. Oh my gosh, like this is crazy.
Yeah.
And that community, the LGBTQ is like really high. I mean, the stats are just so high for like domestic violence and just overall violence and a lot of threats and things and it would just broke my heart because it's like, they need a safe place. Like we're all humans, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm so, I don't know, over putting everyone in little buckets. Like why can't we all just be human beings and unconditionally love?
Yeah.
Because if you really look back, I feel like in the spiritual teachings that have nothing to do with religion, it's all about having unconditional love for yourself, first of all. But I think culturally and society has really just put so many labels on all of us that it holds us back from being our best selves. It's like, what is it your concern who I'm sleeping with.
Exactly.
Or
right.
what I care to, or how I want to dress, or how I want to paint my nails, or where I want to go. And
or the like, and stop me if this is going in a direction that you want to bring it back from.
Open door here.
But like the pronoun thing really bugs me.
Oh God, yes.
Because, and maybe it's my personality, but like if you told me that you don't, like if I was calling you like Chris, and you're like, oh, I really don't like Chris, I like Crystal, please don't call me Chris.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry.
Call me either.
I'll
Everyone
call
calls
you
me
Crystal.
both.
And who knows? And maybe there was someone in your life who called you Chris and there's a very negative connotation, whatever.
Right.
Like I would never double down and go, well, I'm going to call you Chris.
Right.
And one, like my eureka moment that I hope is as brilliant as I think it is, the people that are having a hard time, not the people that are just anti learning new pronouns, because those people I'm just never going to change their minds.
Right.
But the people that get frustrated with like, well, why am I expected? I love my dad and he's very open and accepting, but I've noticed he gets a little frustrated by the pronouns because he's like, why do I have to learn something new? You know? And the best like equating situation I could come up with was like when you have a friend that gets a divorce and they go back to their maiden name, you could be a jerk and double down and be like, no, I'm going to call you Mrs. Smith because you got married and you took that name.
Right.
But it's like, no, I'm going to call you whatever name you prefer to be called by. And I'm not every time I see you going to ask you about your ex-husband. Like,
right.
you know, like we all know how to negotiate this type of thing. It's just when you throw pronouns on it, people get upset. But yeah, that's my soapbox and I'm sticking to it.
No, I mean, I think you make a good... You could come from a different perspective than I do.
Yeah.
And I love that. And honestly, it bothers me too. It's like, why are we so... like, can we just have acceptance?
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's just acceptance.
And you're going to mess up. Like, we're all going to mess up. And it's just how you mess up. If you can mess up and go, oh, I said the wrong pronoun and that's it, I'm done. Or just, well, you know, they say just like apologize or excuse yourself with grace and then just move forward.
Right.
Oh,
and
I'm
move
sorry.
forward.
I called you Chris. I meant to say Crystal.
Right.
Sorry.
Yes.
Which, to clarify, you are okay with all those names.
I'm okay with all the names. I've been called a lot worse. And I love that. So that's a passion of yours. Are you involved in any like organizations or mentorships that support?
I was very involved in Also Youth, and I was on the board. And years ago, used to do a lot of performing for fundraisers for them. And then I left the board because not for any other reason except I realized, ooh, I'm more helpful not being on the board,
right,
but being out in the community and doing what I do.
Yeah.
Like I'm a better help to them. I was kind of a grumpy board member. And so, but I still support them very much and Project Pride and what they're doing. And I am trying to just, because I get to live in our small town, I get to live pretty visibly for being, you know, an out gay man. It didn't seem like it was that big a deal like 5 years ago, but in the last couple of years, it's felt like a big deal that I get to talk about my husband on Suncoast View and no one's telling me I shouldn't or can't.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that just by being an example that way, that's in my tiny little corner that of being seen, I guess. I don't know.
I love that. And so I'm going to ask you a question. Totally fine. If you don't want to dive deep into this, you don't have to.
Nothing is off limits.
What have been your biggest struggles with acceptance from society in your lifetime with all of that?
Oh, even from a young age, the feeling of not being masculine has been so hard to overcome. And I also
I feel like you're masculine.
Well, thank you. But the fear of gesturing or being too swishy or too effeminate, because like as kids were and are, I was picked on a ton in junior high school and high school. I dropped out of high school for that reason, and then later went back and got my GED. But yeah, I guess just the fear of bullying, even as a middle-aged man, because
it's around.
It's fresh. And I will tell you, there is, I wish it wasn't that often. It's maybe been a few months, but somebody will still call me the F word out on the street. And I'm like, oh gosh, like, Seriously? Can't you learn a new word? Can't you? That's the same one they were using in the 70s. Like, evolve, that's probably been I guess that's been my big struggle. I was really lucky to have great parents that
Hmm.
were super loving and accepting
Good.
and made me
And
feel
that
like I was
makes, I feel like,
perfect.
a ton of difference because when
Yeah.
you don't have the parents that are loving and accepting
Hmm.
and can maybe throw stuff at you,
Oh
I feel
God,
like that
yeah.
also makes it.
That's where I feel like I want every kid to have that one spot in their life, and what if it can't be at their home,
Hmm.
if it's like that one teacher, because even though I had amazing parents that were so
Hmm.
awesome, there were still like those teachers I identified that were super safe to me, and
Right.
I got up and I did a lip sync to Olivia Newton-John's uh, when I was a kid, and like I was fearless in that realm because somebody somewhere made me feel like I was perfect, and that was a good thing. So I want every kid to just have one spot in their life where they have that same feeling.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's really, it's caring how what's made you feel great and spreading that into the community. And
Hmm.
that's exactly the purpose of, it's influencing
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially. Like, have you ever done life languages?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wait. Oh, no. Love languages I've
Love
done.
languages. So
Okay.
life languages is a bit
Oh.
different, which I feel like on these questionnaires, some of the questions I'm like, no, I would answer that completely different than what the answers you're giving me the option.
Hmm.
So I'm essentially an influencer, mover, responder.
Okay.
So I'm a high influencer, meaning
Hmm.
like I
I
get out
see
there and
that.
I spread the
Yes.
word. Mover, like I can do many things at once, and then responder, I can feel other people's feelings.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really cool. Matt's actually implemented this at Bell's, and we have some coaches that come in, and so we have actually most of our HR, I think, are trained in this. So a lot of the executives and associates are able to take this test, and you figure out, like, so when Matt and I took it years ago, and we both changed and evolved since then, but he was super high contemplator, which
Mm.
is my lowest,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was super high responder, which is his lowest.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Whereas he has to think and process through things, and I'm like influence and
Oh,
move and
yeah. Go,
impulse and
go.
like here we go. But then he's also has high mover, so it balances his contemplator, so he doesn't just like sit in his head and his thoughts all the time.
Yeah.
He's able to shift through things, but he has to think it through a lot more analytically than I do. Whereas I base everything off of the way it makes me feel.
Feeling and
Yeah,
intuition.
it's feeling and intuition and all of that. So it was really interesting. Highly recommend. Your
How
husband's probably heard of it.
helpful. How helpful. I'm sure he has. I'm going to ask him about it. How helpful that you both know that about each other. Because like making any decision, even the big ones or just the like, where do we want to eat tonight? Like, it's just good to know that your spouse has a different thought process than you do.
Right.
And you can respect their process.
And balance it.
Yeah.
Whereas, I'm the one that usually plans the trips and always ask, the whole fam, does anyone have any input? Is there anywhere you want to go? Is there anything you want to do? Like, for example, our oldest, which he's never taken the test. I don't know if he took the test or not, but I know the middle one did. And he's like 96% contemplator. So we started this before you go to high school. You get to pick where you or a friend you want to go with, no siblings, just you, just us, just you and a friend, and we'll go anywhere. So our oldest was like, oh, I'm taking Brady. You pick. I don't want to plan the trip. You plan the trip. I like the trips you plan. So we went to
right.
Nemacolin. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
Middle guy couldn't figure out where he wanted to go, who he wanted to go with, so we didn't go on a trip.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm like, we still owe you a trip, but
yeah.
you got to figure it out, And then Tatum, she hasn't taken it, so it was interesting. But she planned her trip, but then she's like, but I want to cancel the trip because I want to play travel across. So I'm like, it's interesting, like the different personalities.
Yeah.
And the way that but the decisiveness, I'm like, we found out the middle guy was a contemplator. It made so much sense why he couldn't figure out like where he wanted to go. So it's also knowing like what you need to build up in your strengths too.
Yes,
and that's been
that
really
gives
cool
you
for me.
a patience, I imagine, as a parent. You're like, because I can imagine some other parents would get frustrated, like, come on, why aren't you, we're
Right.
offering you this great thing, and why aren't you doing it? And instead of honoring, like, okay, you have a different process to get to the end result.
Right. And how can we help? Like maybe it's the one that needs options. Maybe it's it's really helped me understand myself too, because it's like if I just go on influencing moving, I needed to bring my contemplator up a little bit because I needed to have some mindfulness behind my decisions, especially starting a new business and other things like that. And so it's really been a learning curve. As far as that goes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I just need to say, and I have such a respect for what you all, what Matt is doing and what the work that you've done that I know is part of it in Bell's. And it's something, I think I told you this when we talked last time. I had hoped that more companies would after the pandemic would spend a little bit more attention on the I want to say the mental health, but it's the
Mhm.
mental health and the mindfulness of
Mhm.
the culture of their work. And it does feel like overall, a lot of places have just gone back to business as usual. Or, well, we posted the 800 number that's
Yeah, the
available to them if
EAP's
they
on
need
there.
help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, no, that's not everyone knows to use that. Or so
Right.
I love hearing that he's actually putting it into play
He
at
really
work.
has. And I will say, and it's been like all him. Like, we've been on this journey together, obviously, individually and together. Different journeys. Like, I had to work through some PTSD stuff, but I think him seeing the journey I was on inspired him to take his own journey and
Mhm.
understand his own stuff. And, we've read a lot of different books, like The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer,
Mhm.
and which is really good, by the way.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I'll have
It's
to send
it's
you the
needed.
book
Yes,
list.
please.
It's really good. It'll be for your summer
Yes,
sobriety.
thank you.
You read your book
Yes.
time, and then you have to wait on your wine.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Untethered Soul, The Power Is Now by Eckhart
Mhm.
Tolle. A New Earth was a big one for him. We actually saw Eckhart Tolle in person. He's
Oh,
like this
wow.
little tiny guy, and
Oh,
he just
yeah.
sits on stage all by himself and talks about the mindfulness. And it's kind of a lot of Buddhist based
Mhm.
practices, but open as well, like more of just like open spirituality. And this is because, Matt grew up Catholic, and
Mhm.
he's no longer that way because he chose to, just kind of broaden his horizons and change things up in adulthood, and realized it just didn't work for him as an
Sure.
adult, which I admire. But
Yeah.
he's taken essentially the books that he's read, and there's so many more. He actually just took the senior vice president team to Jamaica and took them on like a 4-day retreat, and they did Thich Nhat Hanh's Happiness and Fear book. And they all sat around and talked about like what the books meant to
Oh my
them,
gosh.
like personal experiences they had, and they're able to have these open and honest conversations. And I think there was some fear leading up to it, like some of the executives like, we're going to Jamaica, why do we have to go to Jamaica, we could do this,
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
like, and getting people that have been in business for, I mean, and they're all very seasoned executives. So they've
Mhm.
all been in business for like 10 to 30 years, to go on a business trip with no agenda, no plan,
Oh my gosh.
flip-flops,
Yeah.
like
Their heads must have
just bring
exploded.
yourself and
Yeah.
an open mind and a journal.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just so enlightening and so great for them. And it's really always fun for me to see them. They've done this, I think, the past 4 years. And it's really been great to see them all come back, and how, I mean, because everyone interprets it differently,
Mhm.
but like, we all do. Like, we all go to a retreat, you're going to receive the information differently than your neighbor,
Sure.
because of our own life and own conditioning, it's going to hit us differently. But it's really cool how, as a collective, it's allowed them to just give themselves the permission to focus on their own responsibility, really, to respond.
Mhm.
And I talked about this in my retreat. It's there's stimulus in life, right? And then there's like a magical moment in the middle before we react or respond. And it's that
Mm.
choice that we give ourselves. And like, okay, are we going to pause? Are we going to pause? And this is something I remind myself every day. Like, am I
Mhm.
going to pause and think of, like you said earlier, how is this going to make me feel?
Mhm.
Like, if I say this comment, is it going to make me feel good afterwards?
Right.
Or if I go this route, is it going to make me feel good afterwards? Is it going to uplift the person that I'm speaking to? Is it going
Mhm.
to help the situation? Or if I respond this way, is it going to just allow things to flow and have
Mhm.
some acceptance? So it's really been cool to see the growth and development
And
and everything firsthand, and then see it from behind the scenes. Because Matt would be the first person to tell you, like, I am still learning and growing.
Mhm.
I am not I am not an expert at any of this.
Sure.
And he really came along and changed the company values to like accountability and acceptance and empowerment and compassion. And before, it was kind of, we are grateful, we are this, we are that. And it's like, okay, but there's like substance behind this too.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
usually books correlated with it and examples. And so it's been really interesting.
And the fact that it's like this ripple effect that everyone comes home and you can't help but bring that into your family and personal
Hmm.
life. So then you get that benefit, but also like the whole team goes. So then you have this like shared language now that you didn't have before. Because, sometimes they might send like one person from each department or whatever, but then they come back and they're like this alien if they come back and try to implement what they learned, because they don't have anyone else to no one else has done the work with them. So I just think it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I hope that it inspires other businesses, corporations to do the same.
I hope so too. And I feel like we are really kind of shifting into mindfulness society. Maybe it's just who I surround myself with at this point in time. But I do feel like, mental health and maybe not quite slowing things down to the pace we need to, but I think it's becoming more acceptable to be like, I have a lot going on. I'm not going to take this project on. Or obviously it depends on your line of business, but I feel like it's just more widely accepted to kind of scale back for mental health than it used to be.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think it's viewed as a weakness the way it was, certainly our parents' generation.
Oh yeah. I mean, you worked through everything.
Absolutely.
You brushed everything, all the dirty rugs,
don't talk
all the
about it.
You don't talk about
it.
You push through it. And that's why we all have therapists.
Yeah. Who they used to call head shrinkers, remember?
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to the shrink. Yeah. It's so crazy.
So what are some of you said you had really great supportive parents. What are some of the values that they instilled in you that you feel really shine through you now?
They were so different, my parents. And they divorced when I was 16-ish. They divorced a few times, or split up a few times, but they were so different. My dad is more of the charmer and leave everything better than it was when you found it, leave a good impression on everyone. He's a real sweetheart. And my mom was a go-getter, and she was 100 different people. And she had a, like everyone, she had a great side and a very, very dark side. But the people that loved her were like, oh my God, your mother's amazing. Your mother, like Bette Midler should play your mother in a movie. My mother was charismatic. My mother had no fear. And would just do things because, I'm just going to do it. So the real get up and go from my mom, and my dad was more of like you got to go to work every day. You got to show up. You got to like do the work, be reliable.
The structured one.
Yeah. And she was let's knock it all down. And so she would launch businesses and then lose interest in them a little while later. But like, I realized I kind of demonized her a little bit in my adulthood. And then luckily, before she passed, we really got to resolve a lot of things. But one of them was being so grateful that she was an influence along with my dad. He started getting a lot more credit as we got older for like, oh, he really did teach us to be good stand-up people and reliable. But then like she was that like, fire that was lit underneath us. So
and isn't that interesting how as you evolve as a person and mature as a person, you start to respect your parents or older, whoever your caregivers were or influence was. It doesn't even have to be someone in your home. You start to really interpret them in a totally different light.
Oh God.
Like, my mom and I were not close at all. When I was young, she kind of went off on a 20-year, did her own thing, but we're so close now. I'm kind of sad. She was supposed to come Mother's Day weekend, and we all get the flu. Like, who gets the flu in May? But we got the flu. So we weren't able to do a podcast and stuff. So she'll have to come back for that. But when I got to the point, I realized like she wasn't trying to be this absent mother. She was just trying to cope with her own stuff. And she didn't have the tools. And I realized when I was a child, and mostly more so like a teenager, I lived in like the nevers. Like, I'm never going to be like her. I'm never going to do this. But she had a lot of beautiful qualities.
Yeah.
Like, we look very similar. She's very philanthropic heart. She always likes to help people. She always likes to do things. She just has this energy about her. She's very like you said, like a go-getter. When she puts her mind to something, it's going to get done. She may only want to do it for 10 minutes, but she's going to, and I'm like, and I'm a lot like that. And I'm like, but does that make me impulsive? Does it make me like, and it's, I feel like for a long time, like you said, I kind of demonized her or held her to this, well, she's just flighty. She's never going to stick with anything. Well, maybe she's not made for something all the time because guess what? I'm not. And I've accepted that. And so for me to accept that about her allowed me to accept it about me and really, truly love myself from an internal standpoint because I wasn't judging it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think that we grow up and expect our parents to be like these perfect examples of what life should be like. And it's like, no. And I tell our kids, you're going to learn a lot of what not to do from us, you know, and that's okay.
Sure.
Like we've always done the best we can with the tools that we have. There were times where we didn't have very many tools in our toolbox, but we had a lot of fun, you know, it's like, you know, so whatever that means for you. And I think that if that's something I really would love for people to take away from this is, you know, just give people the benefit of the doubt and try to look at it from a different lens. Because when I realized, even with the situation I was talking about with a family member last week, when I was able to have that moment where I put it down, it wasn't mine to carry, and switch the lens, you know, whether it's your parents or, you know, gay teens or whoever, like maybe you look at it from their perspective and show some compassion. Because guess what? At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with you.
No.
It's about them. Like, let people live their lives.
Yes.
And their own experiences. Because what effect does it really have on you anyway?
Right. I am a firm believer that with very, very few exceptions, everyone wakes up in the morning and is trying to do the best they can do
100%.
and the right thing, you know, and it's easy to look at our parents and be like, well, why didn't they know better? They should have known better. No, they didn't. When I do the math of how many kids I would have now based on how old my parents were, I'm like, what? Like, I have 2 dogs and that's plenty, you know, like, so it's just understanding. And neither one of my parents had great role models. So they were like, the amount of things they didn't mess up are amazing. Right. That always kind of brings me a lot of comfort when I think about them. And it was one of the nicest conversations I got to have with my mom before she passed, was just thanking her for like, I don't know how you didn't mess this up, given what you were taught, but thank you. Like, it's pretty incredible.
And I think that that's a huge lesson. Like, focus on the great things. Like, we have that choice. We have the choice. I mean, even when it's with ourselves, you look in the mirror every day. Are you going to look at yourself and, wow, I have beautiful green eyes and I'm really strong and I'm feeling balanced today and I'm going to have a great day? Or do you look in the mirror and it's like, wow, should I get Botox? No, like, we have the choice whether we look at things from a positive perspective, whether it's people, whether it's ourselves, whether it's society, and just have compassion for that. And really just overall unconditional love. Like, don't we want to feel loved and accepted? Like, can't we offer that to other people?
Yeah. I remember having a coach once who said to me that if I'm starting to get down on everything and start to feel negative, all these negative thoughts, to just think of something that I'm grateful for, because she was like, those negative thoughts cannot exist in the space of gratitude. They just can't. It's impossible for that to happen. And it sounds so silly, but it truly is.
100%.
Like, you know, I had a bad day last week. Something went wrong, but I was like, I have a car. I have access to a car that I get to drive and get to go where I'm going. So you know what? I'm grateful for that.
I'm going home. I have food in my fridge. Yes. I have a supportive partner. I have, you know, all the things. And it's not self-serving to do those affirmations. Like, even like, you are worthy. I am worthy. I am strong. I am compassionate. I am respectful. I am respecting. I'm respectable. I am, you know, I'm resilient. I think that that's something that we all have a tendency to underestimate, is our resiliency.
Yeah.
Like, but that comes to mindset. I'm actually reading a really good book right now called Mind Magic, and it talks about the neuroscience behind manifesting. And I'm so excited about it. When I finish it, and it gives you little practices after each chapter of how to kind of reel things in for yourself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really cool because it really starts with setting that intention, like we talked about earlier. Like, you even said, what your purpose and what drives you is like how something's going to make you feel. And that's like the huge takeaway I would want everyone to, you know, think of that. You have the ability to control your thoughts and set your intentions. And, you know, whether it's like someone that's struggling to stop some sort of addiction, if you just try your best, even if you fail, know that tomorrow is a new day and you can try your best again.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we just fall off the wagon sometimes. Well, I already screwed it up.
Yeah,
I'm just going to go down. I'm just going down. No.
Yeah.
Like you have the ability, if you have one drink, if you're committing to not drinking, you don't have to have 5. But if you do have 5, the next day you don't have to have any.
There's a great lady on TikTok who coaches. She always says she primarily coaches women who are trying to change their relationship with alcohol. But guess what? I listen to what she's talking about, and I'm not a woman. But one of the things she says is she just gives you this mantra of one more drink is going to ruin my buzz. If I drink anything more right now, it will ruin my buzz. And it, as silly as it sounds, it gets me out of that feeling of like, oh, I feel so good right now. I better keep going so I'll feel even better.
Right.
But like, and I've used that even when I've had a buzz and, normally all of that goes out the window. It's like, oh, no, I'm going to kill this good feeling. It won't feel as good anymore if I keep drinking. So yeah, like there are those little things. It's not just well, the day's shot now,
Right.
Or I snapped at somebody on my way to work. So I guess I'm done being a
just
good person today.
All day.
Yeah.
Like, no, like, I'm not a good person anymore. But, and forgiveness to self. So one thing that I do a lot in my crystal clear coaching is my clients, like we write fuck you letters sometimes if we need to, whether they're to ourselves, to our partners, to our parents, to our ancestors, to our whatever. We write gratitude letters and we write forgiveness letters. And it's so powerful. There is something so powerful in writing yourself a forgiveness letter.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's given me a feel. I need to write one of those fuck you letters. Yeah. And I'm conscious of it. And I catch myself, and the people close to me will hear me say, there is somebody in my life that I need to get complete with. And I'll start to say some stuff about the situation, and then I'll even say, I'm like, I need to talk to someone about this, my feelings about this relationship, this interaction, because I'm holding on, which is good for me because 10 years ago, I would not have been able to distinguish this because I was holding on grievances with so many people. But now it's a good thing that it's really, I can identify like, ooh, that's a sore spot for me. So I must not be done with that.
Well, that's your homework then.
Yeah.
I'm checking in on you the next couple weeks.
It's going to be a good one.
Yep, do a good one. And then, what's even more powerful, you can burn them afterwards.
Yeah.
Because then you watch it go away. I mean, sometimes you can send it, but I usually don't recommend people send those.
Yeah.
It's really to just process it through your mind. Get it out of your soul. Release it from your soul.
Yeah. And forgive too. I know forgiving is going to be part of that as well.
Well, and forgiveness is for your own heart. It's not for the other people.
No,
because for the most part, some people won't even accept it, and that's okay. Forgiveness comes from like allowing your own heart to stay open and knowing in your heart and that compassion, like whatever that person was going through, if it hurt you, if it insulted you, that's their conditioning. That's their mental turbulence. That's their state of mind. That's their trauma. That's their lack of inner peace, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's not yours to carry.
No. And honestly, that person likely has no idea that they're a villain in my story.
No.
They probably look at like, oh, I did such a nice thing for Joey, so they're not walking around carrying this. I'm walking around with this weight and then trying to drown it with wine in the summer when it gets too hot out.
Well, we're going to follow up on this. And Joey, it was such a pleasure having you on. I feel like we could go on for like 4 hours.
Thank you. This is awesome. I love everything you're talking about matters very much to me. So,
awesome.
And thank you for getting this word out to people.
Absolutely. And I'm going to follow up with you. We have a couple follow-ups.
Yeah, I have some homework.
You have some homework. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And until next time.